We want to start off with a reminder that we are not doctors. Before you make any changes or try something new, always consult with your doctor and medical team first. Chronic illness can vary from patient to patient, so it's always best to consult with your own doctor for what is best for you. Hi, and welcome back to IB Determined. I am your host, Michelle Harvey.
And I'm Mason Harvey. I'm also a host.
Yeah, we're just discussing. We're not sure if we are co-hosts.
Because I'm a host for her and she's a host for me, so we're both co-hosts.
Because we're both equals, so we're both going to call each other hosts. So kind of weird. We're still kind of new at this. And if you already listened to episode 1, thank you for listening. We hope you found it interesting and found some value in it. And we think the best thing to do, the next topic to address, is basically what is Crohn's disease. So if we're going to be speaking about that so much, we thought we better start
explain it.
Yeah. Because when Mason was diagnosed and they told us that, your son might have Crohn's disease, I think both of us were like,
what is that?
What,
I've never heard of it before.
All I knew is I heard the word disease and panicked a little bit, and I looked at the doctor.
It's never a good thing.
Yeah, no. And I looked at the doctor and I was just like, is there a cure? And she looked at me and I remember her kind of like, kind of a little side eye. And, it's treatable, but there's no cure. And then they went on to start bringing up some famous examples, like, oh, there's an Olympic swimmer and he's doing great. And so we were kind of like,
must not be that bad.
Yeah, maybe there is some kind of miracle drug or treatment that will
work magic.
Work some magic. And we, later on kind of learned that's not the case. And we'll go more into the treatments and the options for Crohn's disease in another episode, because honestly, that is a lot to talk about. And I think it would be best to break this up and stay focused today. So today, we're going to go into the first definition of the day, which is what Crohn's disease is. So Mason, do you want to read it? We know so much about it. I feel like we could sit here and say, here's what it is. But at the same time, because we aren't doctors, and I think it'd be better for us to have an actual definition from a site that is well known. So we went to Johns Hopkins Medicine for this definition, and I'll have Mason read it. Go ahead, Mace.
Crohn's disease is a chronic inflammatory disease of the entire gastrointestinal tract. It is an autoimmune disorder, meaning your body's immune system mistakenly attacks healthy tissues in your body. There is no cure. Ulcerative colitis is also under the IBD umbrella, and inflammation is not the entire gastrointestinal tract. It specifically attacks the large intestine, and the colon becomes inflamed.
So, and again, just to recap real quick, because he mentioned the IBD umbrella. So IBD includes both Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. And ulcerative colitis is specific to an area, where Crohn's disease can be any area. And simply removing a diseased affected area does not solve the problem, because it will come back somewhere else when it comes to Crohn's disease. So that's why there's not an easy cure for it. And also, I forgot to mention, for you who are listening, you're not going to be able to see it, but we are wearing our matching team shirts today for Crohn's disease. So whenever Mason goes to the infusion center to get his treatments, where
I get my shots at the hospital.
Since he was diagnosed and we, decided to move forward as a team in everything we do, his dad, myself, and Mason, we all
wear our team shirts.
Wear team shirts. So today, since we're speaking about Crohn's disease specifically, we decided to wear something we normally wear to the hospital. So it's hard for you to see, obviously, if you're listening, but if you're watching, we wanted to show off our shirts from the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this point, I think it's important also to discuss, if we're going to talk about what Crohn's disease is, we're also going to go into some of the symptoms and what they are. We're not going to get too detailed because
No.
I know some of you might be TMI,
Yeah.
and there might be some younger listeners, but I know some of you also might be curious. And honestly, I don't think this should be anything scary for kids,
Mm-mm.
or it's, if anything, it's helpful and it's good
Mm-hmm.
to know and learn a little bit more about the body and understand when something might not be quite right. So it's kind of like puzzle pieces,
Yeah.
I guess, trying to get a bigger picture and help your doctors. So
The puzzle pieces of life.
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah.
Well,
And so now I'm going to read, because we went to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation to get a list of what they consider symptoms, because since Crohn's can kind of vary, I want to kind of get just the big picture of what they say it is. And so some of these would be like using the restroom constantly or urgently, bleeding, abdominal pain, or sometimes you don't have to use the restroom
at all.
at all. So it depends
It's
again.
very strange.
Mm-hmm. And so as a result of this, some of the symptoms are going to be weight loss, a loss of appetite, low energy, fatigue. And in children, you're going to see a delayed growth and development.
Mm-hmm.
And it affects children differently. So these are things adults wouldn't necessarily look out for, but it's something in kids that is very important. And in certain cases, you also have something called fissures, fistulas, and strictures that can occur with this disease. So, you're free. I'll put a link to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation in the comments. I'll leave a link for you guys. So if you want to look into it further, you're more than welcome to.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're just trying to keep this short, to the point. and then there's more symptoms, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you noticed. So there's also, like Mason just said, Crohn's disease affects the gastrointestinal tract.
Mm-hmm.
That's from your mouth
to your
other.
We don't talk about that.
your other end. So that your entire GI tract. We can just shorten it to GI.
Yeah.
That
GI
way.
tract.
Yeah. That way, instead of saying gastrointestinal, so GI. And what you'll notice with Crohn's disease is some people, it can affect their eyes. It can affect the mouth. It can give you joint pain, skin issues, rashes, other complications.
You can also get sunburns easier.
And that's part of the biologics.
Yeah.
So that's
depending on the biologic.
Again, that's what, yeah. And you can have fevers, and you can have night sweats. And something else they also, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation listed, is osteoporosis. And I think for Mason, like, this is a good time. You don't have to go into great detail.
Yeah.
But when you hear these symptoms, how many of these apply to you?
A lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them that I did encounter when I was in the first year of coming home with Crohn's disease is a lot of joint pain.
Yeah.
And it's not fun at all.
No. It's debilitating joint pain.
You can sneeze and your back will go out.
Yeah, it took us by surprise when it first happened, and it was very scary. All of a sudden he just would collapse, and he was no longer able to do the things he used to do. Even swinging a golf club, he used to golf quite a bit. That was no longer an option, and that was very frustrating. And we learned so much just as things would happen, and when we talked to the doctors, and it's like, this is crazy. But what the doctors will do is they also set you up with specialists. So you have so many appointments.
Yeah.
And at first you're like, why do I need to see all these different people?
There's a reason.
There's a reason. So like besides seeing your GI, you see your regular doctor as well. And then you start seeing an ophthalmologist, dermatologist. Dentist is also important because this disease can affect your mouth. It can affect your teeth, as we
the dentist has
also
to
found
understand Crohn's as well as just teeth. They have to understand both, because Crohn's can do some interesting things.
Yeah, it can manifest in different ways in your mouth. And we also found that out it's a little bit the hard way.
Mhm.
But we have a great dentist, who's on board, and um, there's several other specialists we saw as well, and it's important to have that team and that network so you can reach someone immediately if you have, questions or concerns, and it's, very helpful to have in place. And I think a lot of people forget like things like seeing an ophthalmologist. I don't think they think about it till all of a sudden like, hey, why is my eye
Itchy.
itching and red and
Yeah.
those kind of things. So
Because in the beginning, when you don't really understand,
mhm,
going to all these appointments like almost every week, it's a challenge on its own.
it is. It is. We've been to hundreds of appointments, and I don't think people realize that until you're in it, how exhausting
Yeah.
and difficult that is on the patient. And especially when you have school, just regular, or if you're an adult and you have work,
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
Because some appointments can take almost half of the day up.
Yeah,
And when you're
exactly.
trying to do school, that's
And they're hard to get.
yeah.
So when you have an appointment too,
Take it.
you take it, you go to it, you don't want to miss it.
No.
You don't want to miss that opportunity. So I think the next thing that would be a good idea to talk about is how it is diagnosed. You have all these symptoms, but obviously it's not always Crohn's disease. There's
No.
other things out there. So we turned again to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation to give
Yeah.
you guys an exact,
Definition.
definition of what they talk about, and they say that there's no single test to determine Crohn's disease. That's true. So
Yeah.
we found that out.
Mhm.
That's why Mason was in the hospital for almost
2
2
months.
weeks before we
Oh,
got
yeah.
2
2
months. You were
weeks.
in there for 2
2 months,
months
but 2
total,
weeks
but
it took them
to
to find
figure out right
roughly.
what the problem was. And so no, there's no exact test. It's a combination of things, again, like those puzzle pieces we were talking about earlier. And so some of these are lab tests like blood
Mhm.
work, and specifically looking for certain things in the blood,
Mhm.
inflammation markers too,
White blood cells.
your hemoglobin, to see if you're, anemic, see how your nutrition is. Also, they can do other tests as well, other lab tests, X-rays, CAT scans,
Mhm.
MRIs, MREs, pill cams, endoscopy, colonoscopy.
We don't really like to talk about those.
No, I mean you can share. Why don't
Yeah.
you tell them I mean, this is real stuff. For a kid to find out they need to get scopes, obviously they're like, "What's that mean?"
And like,
And so for poor Mason, it's already traumatic enough with all this testing. And so how did they tell you with the colonoscopy? They called it
noodle camera.
a noodle camera. And so it's like a noodle with a camera on it. So that's how they described it to the kids, and you're asleep. So that's the best part. I don't
Mhm.
think he really cared as long as he was out and
Mhm.
didn't know what was going on. But yeah, so you have that. And then when they do that colonoscopy though, it's important to note they're going to come out to you and they'll have pictures,
Mhm.
which I was like, no, thank you. I mean, I was like, I'm good, doctor. I believe you if you see these things. But it was important for us to see because over time there would be more scopes, and it was important for us to see the process and see how much he had improved. So there's that. But yeah, it was quite a shock
Yeah.
seeing those pictures. And what they do is they take biopsies, and they also look for
Mhm.
something called pseudopolyps. And they will take a little bit of time to get back to you, but that is how they actually confirm their findings. They kind of put the final picture together is with those biopsies. So it's a little nerve-wracking waiting. The doctor knew almost immediately, though. She was almost positive without the biopsies for Mason that it was Crohn's disease.
Mhm.
So, but the biopsies confirmed it. So, I mean, I don't think you were scared. I know you were scared for a lot of these tests.
Yes.
How do you feel about it now? I mean, since we've been, 3 years later, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I definitely feel braver about them. Um,
Mhm.
but I would be scared if I had to do an endoscopy an MRI again.
Well, luck with the
Uh,
endoscopy, you're asleep.
but the only reason I
So,
don't like it is the prep.
oh, I see what you're
You
saying.
can't eat for a day, and
Yeah.
you have to drink lots of liquids
Yes. We
because of
actually have
reasons.
we have a we throw a party, I guess you
Mhm.
could say. It's not a very fun
Fun
party.
party.
You try to make everything as fun as you can, but we'll do things where we divide up the amount of drinks into like a shot size
Mhm.
so he can um he
Yeah.
has like every 5 minutes to 10 minutes he has a time frame, he just has to get that amount. And so that way instead of having him like drink a huge amount and get sick, we break it up over an amount of time. And it works well for him. That's
Yeah.
how we do it, but it's not
It's not
easy.
fun because you also can't
No.
eat because you get
No.
tired of the flavor. Like,
Mhm.
I don't feel like drinking this Gatorade anymore, and you can't take a bite of goldfish or
No.
anything to get the flavor out
The
of your
most you
mouth.
can have is like a clear
Yeah,
broth and um
which tastes very bland
mhm.
compared to that Gatorade or
Yeah.
whatever you're drinking.
So that is tough. Yeah, that is tough. And the MRI, well, yours was also an MRE.
MRE.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we had that.
my bad.
Oh no, I think
No,
you
no,
had
no, yeah.
both. You had both, I believe. So that was also a challenge as well. You had to have a few of those.
Mhm.
But they're not it's not necessarily that they're painful
No, they're
or
not.
anything like that, but it's still challenging, you know.
Yes.
Um
It's a painless challenge.
mhm. Yeah. And
Does
so
that make sense?
I would say from, a caregiver's standpoint, it is also it's very scary because you're watching someone you love so stressed out and so upset, and you don't want to also be that parent who's like, "Oh, just don't worry about it and, be brave, don't," because it is scary. So it's so important to validate those emotions and make sure he understands that
Mhm.
we get it, it's like it has to be done, but we understand and we'll do everything we can to make it as painless and easy and fun is kind of difficult, but
Yeah.
whatever we can do. And the hospital is really good about that too, at least on the pediatric side. I think
Mhm.
with the adults, I don't think they
No.
are quite as fun, but they work really hard with the kids to keep them comfortable. And I think that there's a lot of questions that pop in your mind and you want to immediately run to Google and just, that it's important to have a good doctor
Yeah.
that you feel comfortable asking and that gives you responses. Again, the whole brush off that, if you're finding your doctor is brushing you off, get a second opinion. This is your health and don't don't accept that. That's and we've been fortunate for Mason found, got to see his doctor in the hospital, find her, hand pick
Mhm.
his someone that he trusted and he could
'Cause I was there for 2 months, and
Mhm.
I had a lot of different doctors while I was there, because they changed them, like, once every week, so I
Yeah.
could choose my favorite one. Now don't get me wrong, all of them were very good.
Yeah, they were all excellent. They were. I mean, I think you would have been
Yeah.
we would have been fine, but this particular doctor, she got down on her knee, looked Mason in the eye, and really addressed him on a level that was perfect for him
Mhm.
and that we needed. And so this, brings us we're going to kind of wrap this up with something that I think is so important to talk about. And that is assuming that Crohn's is the same for everyone, that symptoms are the same for everyone, that treatments are the same. And I think, like we've talked about, people are just trying to help,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, they mean
It's
well.
not really their fault.
No, that's and I think it's a good learning opportunity because I'm sure I have done it as
Mhm.
well to people without even realizing that I'm doing that. And so I take it as an opportunity to step back and say, "Hey, maybe I thought I was helping, but I wasn't." And I know like one of the examples I can give is when Mason was first home from the hospital after being diagnosed and he was pretty miserable. He couldn't do a whole lot. He was on the couch for most of the day
Mhm.
and I had saw another child with Crohn's disease, and his parents had posted a video in a group I belong to saying like, "Look," and he was dancing or
Yeah.
something, and they were so excited to share his progress. So I, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I let me show this to Mason." And I showed it to Mason, and what did you do?
I started crying,
He
because I
he
thought I'd
did.
never be like that.
I felt so terrible because I thought, oh, I'm giving him hope. And then
Mm.
but what I realized is that in those moments when it just feels like maybe you're pushing something on them that they feel is not going to happen. And so we took it as a good opportunity to talk about it. So it doesn't mean you're not happy for somebody.
Yeah.
But that's not the thing because you can be I think you can be happy for that child that they were progressing, but in
You
your
just feel like you're not
situation,
lucky.
right, and you realize so many people tell you, "Oh, I know somebody with Crohn's disease. They're doing great. Don't worry, you'll be
Mhm.
fine."
Are you sure?
Yeah. And so, well,
Yeah.
and I think though, really, I mean, think about it. Before you say that to somebody, have you sat down with that person for 24 hours and, watched what they go through? Have you actually talked to them and asked them? Because it is known as an invisible disease.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't talk about it. They don't share it. And you may not even realize the battle they're fighting. And so you think, oh, yeah, they're great. And because something else, this disease, there's something called flares, which is when the body is symptomatic. And sometimes you can flare and it
And
gets
that's
really
when you
bad.
get a lot of the back pain and a lot of the issues start to
Right.
rise.
You become very symptomatic because, again, there's no cure. You can go into remission with different treatments, which we'll talk about in another episode. But remission is not something that lasts forever. And it can flaring can happen quite often. So you never know where you're seeing someone at in their journey. And it makes it very frustrating for patients to be compared to somebody else and be made to feel that they're not as strong or, it's I think I mean, how do you feel about that, Mason? How does that make you feel when somebody tells you, "Oh, you'll be fine. I know someone with this disease and they're doing great." Like, does it give you hope or does it kind of frustrate you? What I mean,
It's hard to say because
mhm,
you know the person is trying to help,
yeah.
which makes you happy, but you know they don't really know what the disease is about, so it doesn't feel like they paid attention. So
Yes.
you feel kind of happy that they're trying to make you happy, and you also feel frustrated that it feels like that you feel like they didn't pay attention to you.
Right, and I think that's 100% of it because like you said, it's comforting to know that they're
Mhm.
trying to talk to you about it, trying to be in the moment and encourage you. And I think that is a fantastic thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that's why us speaking out though maybe will educate somebody. So I think the best thing, you can do is to ask somebody,
Yeah.
instead of telling them, ask them, well, how come, okay, I know someone with Crohn's disease and they're doing,
Yeah.
this, and that. And so how come you aren't? And
Mhm.
you might be surprised to find out why this person's life is so different from another's and they have the same disease. So I think it's just important we ask questions. And I think someone with the disease will appreciate
Mhm. Being asked these
being asked. Yeah,
questions
because you do care. So,
because they want an answer. It's
mhm,
not like they're talking to you, um, wanting to get a conversation over with.
right. So
They want to learn.
that's something that I think a takeaway from all of this is you can have all the details, you can know more about it, but always talk to the person. And I think you can learn a lot about any illness or anything, someone's going through. Don't assume that because someone else they handled it better or
Mhm.
they're living life to the fullest that it's going to be exactly the same and look the same for somebody else. And some I guess there's a way like I describe it to people because I mean, cancer is something we can kind of equate it to because so many people are familiar with
Mhm.
cancer. So if someone says they have cancer and another person says they have cancer, you would
Mhm.
specifically ask them, "Oh, what kind?"
Yeah.
And is it a stage 1? Is it stage 4? All these things matter.
People have different cancers.
It's not all the same. And no, they're not all going to be on the same
No.
treatment. So, I mean, while Crohn's disease, again, so different, but I'm just trying to draw a comparison that people might understand is, with Crohn's disease, you can have mild to severe. It can affect different parts of the body, and you might be doing totally different treatments, which affects how you do live your life day to day. So, just kind of, keeping in mind that and I think you can apply this to a lot of chronic illnesses.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So again, we're all about talking about ways to on this to just to overcome, not dwell on stuff. But I think that it's important just to understand that we don't think you're being rude when you try to help. That's not it.
Mhm.
But we're going to keep speaking out to hopefully help you guys better understand and maybe enable family members or friends to come to you. So, and also understand that it's, you know, would you say it's like a full-time job?
It is.
Mhm.
It's like a full-time job.
Mhm. It
'Cause you're
is.
always worried about that person, and you're always looking for a way to make them happy, and you're working to do it. So it is a full-time job, and you're always with that person.
I like how you went right to the caregiver. I was kind of referring about you too.
Oh, okay. I was
No,
getting
I think
confused.
that's cool. No, because I think we're both looking at each other's
Yeah.
perspective. You're looking at mine and I'm looking at yours. So that's funny, but it's true. And I think that adults, a lot of times, it's extremely complicated to navigate so many different aspects of this disease. And when you have a child with it, the adult and the caregiver, like in my case, even though I don't have the disease, I still am with him through all of it and trying to help get him the best care and day to
She
day
takes
and
action like it's her disease,
right, right.
which is very important.
It is. And so caregiving is so important. And I think it's so, a lot of people don't realize that caregivers can use support too and some kind words as well. And and I mean, I think we got everything. Is there anything else that you can think of?
I don't think so.
No, I mean, we just kinda wanted to I know this is probably a little boring. I promise
Yeah.
we're gonna try to make this more fun,
I'm sorry if it was a little boring.
but we felt it
A
was
lot.
necessary. I'm like, we need to talk about this and get this out of the way. So that way if someone's listening to further episodes, they can come back to this one, and we can give you some reference points and the comments as well, so things you guys can look up and read more about this. So, and also just, take it as an opportunity maybe to learn more. If you have a family member or friend that's going through something, take it as an opportunity to look into it yourself. And I think they would be so happy.
Yeah.
I really do. So I think that's it
Yeah.
for episode 2.
2.
So yeah, so we'll go ahead and wrap up now. And thank you
Yeah.
guys for listening.
Like and subscribe to I Be Determined on YouTube, and
I think we should have them click the bell, right? Is that
Mhm.
what it is for
click the bell
notifications?
for notifications.
So when we have new episodes, you'll be notified if you're following us and you're subscribing. So you'll be able to see when new episodes come up because it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, you don't want to miss out.
No, you don't wanna miss out on these fun
Yes.
facts.
And please, find us on Instagram at Team IB Determined. And you're welcome to comment, message us with anything, again, suggestions, questions, and if you're interested on talking to, on being here and talking to us about an aspect of this disease or any challenge or any illness, anything, let us know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we would love to talk to some people. We'll be doing that soon. And yeah, reach out. Thank you guys for listening. We appreciate you.
And we'll see you in the next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye. We hope you will stick around, tune in, and reach out to us with your own journeys. We are excited to give you an inside view of what it takes to be a caregiver and what it's like to be a patient.
And most of all, we hope you'll maybe be able to apply something you hear on here that might help you in your own life. Sometimes life changes, and it's all about how you handle the journey.